Greetings everyone, I am NS2 Xenophon from NS2 Games, and this is Goblin Storm, a fantasy operational strategy game due to release December 19 on Steam. So, without further ado, let's jump right in. Today, I will be playing the Helsatian Empire, one of the two human factions, on the Forbidden Mountains map against an AI Goblin. Now, before we get going, let's select our heraldry. We have quite a few options here, but I do believe the Severed Hand seems most appropriate. As the human defender, it is our job to get the kingdom set up, so I'm going to go ahead and place all of our towns, villages, and castles. And as I move the cursor around to place, in this case, a village, you'll notice that the surrounding terrain affects the population, development, and economy of the town quite significantly. You can see that displayed in that card in the bottom left. So I'm going to go ahead and get all of our towns and villages set up. And something to keep in mind when you're creating your kingdom is that as the human defender, you do not know what the goblin's here for. You don't even know what kind of goblin is attacking. You're going to have to figure that out as you play. So you have to create your kingdom before you know what their objective is. After you have your kingdom set up, it's time to move on to recruiting your professional army. Now, as the human, you will get extra forces in the form of levies as the game goes on from your towns and villages, but it's this professional army that you buy at the start of the game that really does all the heavy fighting. These are your good soldiers, your professionals, your knights, your men-at-arms, your crossbowmen. These are the guys who know what they're doing. Never trust peasants, trust your knights. So, without further ado, let's get into buying some units here. We're playing Helsatia, so our big advantage is cavalry. We have excellent knights and excellent mounted leaders as well. So we're going to start off by buying some knights, see what that'll cost us. 59 for a couple of regiments, throw in some infantry in here as well. You'll notice that there's a diversity in unit selection here, so you have leaders, heavy knights, only one regiment of those, normal knights, men-at-arms, grenzers, who are defensive specialists, crossbowmen, archers, and then finally Jaegers, who are the absolute all-stars of the Imperial Army. So we're going to get a good selection of units here because we want to have combined arms. We want to have infantry, we want to have fire units, i.e. archers, we want to have cavalry, because we want to use all these together to get the maximum combined arms bonus of an automatic plus 50%. So let's get this army set up. Now we have all these units in the deployment box here. We've got individual regiments, 100 archers there, 50 Jaegers there. They're sort of spread out. So let's start creating battle groups, which are custom unit groups where I'm going to take these units and I'm going to break them down and turn them into new units. So let's show you how to do that. Let's see, a regiment of heavy knights, the Black Eagles, a regiment of normal knights, the Red Falcons, and let's throw a leader in there, and let's throw a company of Jaegers in there. And so what we're going to do is going to open up these unit cards. You click on a stack, you double click on a unit to open it up. And you can either detach them one at a time like this, open up the unit card, click detach, or you can open up a unit, press Shift D, and that detaches all attached units at once, makes it much faster. And anyway, once you have these units, these individual companies ready to go to a battle group, you can just select them and click group. And suddenly all of those units have been merged into a single regiment with 303 assault value. You can see how this gets dangerous quickly. And add on top of that the plus 20% from having a leader inside of it, because we're humans, we can do that, and the plus 50% from combined arms. And this is a truly lethal regiment we've got here. But you can't have many of these. It's just prohibitively expensive. So when you're playing the Empire, Helsatia, you're going to have a few really good units, and then you're going to have a lot of sort of filler units you use to slow the goblins down while your knights ride around and murder everyone. That's how Helsatia works. Now let's get these boots on the ground. After you have your army set up, you're ready to deploy it. So I'm going to go through my battle groups and start positioning them on the map. So let's get these guys set up. Heavy cavalry down there, some Jaegers in there, some more heavy infantry towards the front. Another thing to remember is that we're not just fighting the goblins. They're the main attraction here, but there will also be roving beasts, bandits, and brigands who have their own agendas and their own objectives. So the goblins aren't the only threat. And another feature to show you here is actually that you can build more fortifications during the army deployment phase. For a cost in gold, you can pay to build keeps, stockades, and watchtowers. Usually mobile troops are more valuable than fortifications, but these do definitely have a use. So let's get a stockade there west of Mead Hall. because you can use fortifications to deny space. Goblins are not going to have an easy time taking a stockade. They'll probably take it, but it's not going to be easy. Now let's continue to get these forces on the map, because against the possibility of beast raids, we do want to have forces in the rear. We also have to be prepared for the possibility that the goblins will attempt to bypass our front line and head towards our rear area in a stealth attack. That is always a risk. Okay, now that we have our army all on the board, it is time to hit the end of the pre-turn and enter the game officially. Let's go. The first order of business is to get our recon units out front and start catching any goblins going around our flanks and start figuring out their plan. So we're going to detach this Jaeger company and the battle group at Meat Hall. We're going to detach them from the battle group, then we're going to send them northwards along the river with a skirmish order. What is important about the skirmish order is it will cause them to attack any enemy unit that comes adjacent to them during the turn. So this is a great order for catching enemy scouts and destroying them. It's also great for inflicting small numbers of casualties on large enemy forces. And Rangers and Jaegers in this case, are absolutely expert at it. And that's pretty much all we're going to do for the first turn. So we're going to get those Jaegers moving, and then we're going to run the turn. Turn resolution in Goblin Storm is simultaneous, so you plan your turn, the AI plans its turn, and then it runs them together. When you're playing human versus human, you both plan simultaneously, and of course it runs them at the same time. So let's see what the AI did. And here we go. So we have enemy contact. As you can see up here with the Northern Jaeger group, the Total Jaegers, there was a skirmish combat. We killed 21 of them and we lost 5. We can look through this combat and see the details. So we can see that we lost 5 Jaegers in melee. We lost no one in fire combat, but the enemy lost a fair chunk, not too many, but they lost a few warriors. Now we really can't see too many enemies yet, but what we can tell is that our enemies are Gothrang, simply because of the units we're seeing. These are Gothrang hordes. So we really don't see many of them yet, so we can't plan too much. Let's check our rear areas for beasts. Oh, nothing bad going on back there. So let's just continue to draw up the line and wait to see what they do. You'll also notice down here at the bottom of the screen in these unit stacks, we're starting to see units with yellow stripes on them. These are levies. They come up automatically when goblins or beasts are spotted nearby. They're not very good troops, but they'll get the job done. If nothing else, you can use them to project zone of control. Speaking of zone of control, it's probably a good time to explain that you only have a zone of control if you have 1 or more stacking points in a hex. So this ranger, the Schwarzenberg Ranger sitting here south of Meat Hall, only one company, 50 guys. They do not have a zone of control, so enemies can move right by them. Let's see what else to do here. I think that's basically all we're going to do for this turn until we see more of the enemy. We have a bit more action up here in the north. Another skirmish near Wilton Garrison. Killed 10 of them, no casualties, not really much of a result there. And they did directly attack our Jaegers across the river, and that went really badly for them. We lost 1 guy, and we killed 72. This is why Jaegers are scary. They're few and far between, but they're incredibly dangerous. So you can sort of see the damage we did there. It does look like they're getting ready for an attack on the stockade of Wilton Garrison, and they are successfully trying to slip around the castle here in the south with their scouts. So we're going to spread out some forces on the southern front here to begin sweeping for the enemy, because I do believe they're moving through the mountains. You can always check your line of sight with the line of sight overlay here. The blue highlighted X's are ones we can see, and as you can see, we do have a hole. And I strongly suspect they're through in the south as well. So we're going to spread our levies out and use them to catch enemy infiltrators. I'm going to move the Wheatling Garrison here up towards the foothills of the mountains, and the Grey Court levy is going to come down along the road to prevent the enemy from using it. We're going to pull these Jaegers in the north back a bit, so that they're a little ways out of harm when the enemy go after Wilton Garrison. And that's all we're going to do for this turn. Actually, one more thing. We're going to move the main army in the castle down here, eastwards down the road. In terms of the orders, a couple things to explain here. So march orders, of course, are your standard move order. But there's something to note. When you're moving with a march order, if they run into an enemy unit and their odds are 1-to-1 or better in combat, they will attack it. So you'll see a lot of accidental combats in Goblin. This is intentional. This is, after all, a medieval fantasy battlefield. We don't have radios. We don't have fine-tuned control over everything. So that's an intentional feature, and it tends to make the battles a bit more unpredictable and quite bloody, which, in my opinion at least, works quite well. Otherwise, move orders are very similar to skirmish orders. You select where you're going, left-click your destination. If you don't want to go the rest of the distance, you simply right-click, that ends the move, and they'll execute the order. They won't attack adjacent units, only ones they directly run into. Let's run this turn and see what happens. And we have contact everywhere. Now, before we get to the situation on the ground, let's talk a bit about the scout report. This is the intelligence system here. So we can see we have intelligence reports for each of the 3 turns. And you'll notice some interesting things here. So heavy wagons were sighted. It's interesting. Goblins are brawling over the division of loot. It happens a lot. Goblins are violent. Wouldn't read too much into that. Peasants' fears may be the beginning of the end times. Never trust anything peasants say, because in Goblin Storm we have 3 different types of intelligence. There are rumors. Sometimes those are true. They often are not. We have physical evidence, such as heavy wagons sighted or captured, and then you have intelligence observations. These are from your Jaegers and the like. That say goblins are brawling over the division of loot. Prisoners claim they desire gold. Townsfolk claim foreign merchants are spies for the goblins. Also, enemy force estimates near positions. So, judging by the weight of evidence here, this is probably, it's hard to tell actually. It could be a gold raid. That certainly seems likely. It could also be a conquest, because goblins love gold. Conquest, they certainly get quite a bit of it. But we're going to have to keep playing to tell, but keep that in mind. This is sort of how you piece together their motivations from what you see in the intelligence reports and what you see the AI doing, or your human opponent as well. Down here in the south, we had what? Ran into some scouts, beat them up, didn't kill them. We have enemy scouts in our interior here. Scouts are very hard to catch, they move very quickly, and they ignore most terrain costs. Up there in the mountains as well. In fact, the mountains, they really beat our levy spears up in a skirmish. We're going to pull them off by 1 hex. Another handy note, if you didn't catch a turn resolution, you can always click this replay button here, and then you can have it replay the turn for you impulse by impulse. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, etc. You can think of impulses as times of day, with impulse 1 being dawn and impulse 9 being dusk. That's basically how the impulse system works. That's how units move. So let's return to the situation on the ground here. We've got a lot of enemy force in front of us. They have encircled Wilton Garrison, is now zone of control lock. The garrison there cannot leave. They're probably going to bypass that position. We have our very heavy troops at Meat Hall, so we're ready to repulse them. It does look like there's going to be an attack across the river here. Let's hope the Jaegers and the Levy archers can hold them, and Shawkhurst is also very well held, but we do have infiltration in our rear. So we're going to take some of these units we have in reserve, and we're going to spread them out and use them to cover the road so the enemy can't infiltrate too far into our rear areas. By the way, when I'm issuing orders, you may notice on all the orders here, one of the letters is highlighted in blue. That's a hotkey, so instead of right-clicking on a unit and then issuing an order by clicking, you can just right-click on unit, press M, you're now marching, there you go, just like that, much quicker. So now let's see where this goes. So here we are at the top of turn 5. We have some more intelligence reports. Peasants claim they saw a dragon. Peasants have very inventive imaginations. Goblin soldiers are anticipating plunder. That certainly goes well with that desire for gold, doesn't it? But also, rather importantly, there are an estimated 4,678 goblins near Mead Hall, which tells us something about the size of the enemy force. But again, they also seem to have disengaged along the river line and they're moving south. So it's not entirely clear what they're playing at. They may try to shoot through this mountain gap because we have the river line zone of control locked at this point. They're going to have a very hard time getting through that. So they appear to be shifting forces southwards. So what we're going to start out by doing is we're going to move these guys into the mountains as a tripwire. They will be glorious sacrifices for the greater good. We're going to move that levy into Wheatling to keep it safe, and move these guys down the road for security. And we're going to take one of the battle groups out of Heathmoor, head them up north. We're going to take these knights north of the river, and we're going to prepare to crush this northern enemy prong. We're going to try to annihilate that force in detail. We're going to move these Jaegers into Mead Hall in the meantime to garrison it. That should be enough. Maintain these forces in Shawkhurst for now. Yeah, the enemy forces in front of them are too strong to attack. If this stack here, west of Shawkhurst, was in open terrain, I'd kill them right now. The problem is they're in a forest, and as you can see with his modifiers down there in the bottom left, our heavy infantry and our heavy cavalry are significantly reduced in combat value in forest, so it's really not safe to go after them in there. I'm, however, going to be a bit more aggressive in the south. This may go really badly, but we're going to move that army out down the slope. We're going to count on the fact that we're better trained to make this work. This could also be a disaster. We'll find out. And in the east here, brigands have taken and burned Marshwood, which is rather unfortunate. And in the west, our Jaegers were killed. They did take a lot of them with them, but the Jaegers are annihilated in this combat. We killed 68 of them. There were 1,000 attacking. But, you know, they did their duty. We'll see what we can do now. And interestingly enough, we have far more enemy contact in the north than we anticipated. So let's see what happened. When you've got several combats in a turn like we do here, and you don't want to go through all the combat reports and look at them individually, speaking of which, we killed about 300 of them there this turn, there's a much easier way to do it. You go up here next to the game dropdown, it's one that says none, click on it, and you click on losses, and that allows you to see the losses per side per hex this turn. So up here we killed 282 of them, we lost 65. Here we killed 5 for 5, there it's 0-0. So it's a much easier way to check losses when you have a lot of combats. So let's continue the fight here in the north. Move these guys out of Heathmoor again. We attacked the brigands across the river and dislodged them, but we weren't able to get across the river this turn. Sure enough, they are trying to go through this gap, so we're going to move this force down to the south to zone of control lock the end of the mountains. Got some scouts in our rear, but for now we're going to ignore them. We have levy cavalry at Shepling. Actually, it's a levy cavalry company and a spear and an archer. We're going to bring them down and try to kill those goblin scouts. And let's see what's going on in the north. So the enemy stacks in front of us, it's mostly a hodgepodge of light infantry. This is very normal for the Goth rank. Most of the units are not at all standardized. They've got all kinds of things in there. But in this stack, there are 2 leaders. And this is significant because Goblin leaders grant a 20% combat bonus to everyone in their clan, so killing them would be incredibly important. So we're going to try to kill them off next turn. I'm going to destroy the stack for now. As you'll notice, this cavalry battle group we had, which at the beginning of the game was 2,300 assault points, melee points, is now down to 1,300, so it is taking losses. Actually, look at that. So first company's down to 39 heavy knights, for instance. So let's continue to play this out. I am worried about the south, but we're going to be quite aggressive here. We're going to try to put them in an encirclement in the mountains. And we're going to see how that goes. And here we are in turn 7. Judging by the intel report, we've got a particularly interesting nugget of information in here. Goblin leaders possess detailed dwarven maps of our towns. That's a rare one. That's strongly indicative that this is either a slave raid or a gold raid, and since we've seen no evidence that they're here for slaves, we haven't found chains amongst the dead, we haven't found giant cages on wagons, this is a strong indication that we're looking at a gold raid. So our goblin friends here continue to try to envelop us in the north and also through the mountains in the south. We have inflicted serious casualties on them in the north. We wiped out another 284 with our knights. We should be able to go after those leaders this time, so let's go out and do that. You will notice, by the way, in most of these combats I'm using the march order as my standard combat order. That's simply because it allows you to attack multiple times per turn. There is also the normal attack order. In fact, I can show you that one here. It's a bit special because the way the actual quote-unquote attack order works is you select a target hex and an impulse. So let's say this hex here, Impulse 5, select the target with that stack, Impulse 5 over here, same target. And those two units will attack at the same time. But the reason I don't use this order all the time is they will attack that enemy unit and every other enemy unit adjacent. This creates massive grand battles, meaning you mostly use the attack order for sieges, for targets that are either trapped and can't get away, or for obviously towns because they're not going to be running away. The advantage using the attack order is you get an automatic 20% combat bonus for doing it. But again, you're attacking everything as adjacent and you're only attacking once per turn. That's why I usually use the march order. So let's continue to see what the situation looks like over here. We're going to live a bit dangerously, and we're going to attack this enemy horde near Shockhurst, the Iron Flood horde. This is a pretty strong one. They've got proven spears. Those are high-end troops for the Ghost rank. They have limited combined arms, but they have no cavalry. We do. So what we're going to do is we're going to attack them from two directions at once. We're going to hit them from the northwest, and we're going to hit them from the southwest. And we're going to try to trap and crush them, using the fact that we have heavier combined arms than they do. Got these annoying scouts in the back. We're going to put these archers on skirmish. Hopefully kill them if they run by. And we're going to run this. And here we are at the start of turn 8. Judging by both the intel reports and the goblin behavior, I think it is safe to say at this point that this is a gold raid. You may notice that on the northern front, they keep trying to evade us. They're trying to get away from our heavy knights and get into these forests and mountains where they're strongest and we're weakest. They're trying to get around our flanks so they can get into our rear area and sack these beautiful little towns and villages we have over here, which are absolutely filled with gold. Meanwhile, in the west, our gamble has paid off. We have virtually annihilated the Iron Flood horde. They certainly will not be a threat anymore. But we're going to end up cutting off this Let's Play at this point. 8 turns in, there's still 17 turns left to go, and the battle's really just getting started. We have Goblin Lancers out in our rear area, preparing to attack Shepling. We still have Goblin Raiders over here in the west. There's still forces on our western border as well. And in the north, we have an unknown number of goblins going through the mountains. You may remember earlier in the game, we had that intel report of 4,000 goblins near Mead Hall. Well, at this point, most of them will be up here in these mountains and these forests. Because according to our intelligence, we've only killed 1,237 goblins, so there are at least 3,000 more still out there. So this battle is really only just getting started. But for the purposes of time, we're going to end it here. And before I wrap this up, I'm going to give you guys a quick rundown of the orders in Goblin Storm and how they work. So we'll start off with the March order. This is your standard movement and combat order. Simply select March, select your destination, and your units, while executing your March order, not only move to the destination, they will also attack any enemy units they run into as long as the odds are 1-to-1 or better. We also have the Forced March order. This allows them to move farther and faster, but units with a Forced March can only move along roads, and they will not attack any enemy units they run into. Then we have Fair Orders, that simply cancels orders. Attack, this causes them, you select an impulse you want to attack on, and then a destination, and the unit will attack that hex on that impulse and every hex adjacent to it as well, but you gain a plus 20% combat bonus for using it. Then we have the Skirmish order. This works a lot like the March order, except that units that are skirmishing will also attack any enemy unit that comes adjacent to them during the turn. This is great for units like Jaegers or Rangers who are good at skirmishing. Many units are not good at skirmishing, so you want to be very careful with how you use that. We also have Reinforce. This is a fairly niche order, so the way it works is we select a unit, say the crossbowmen at Wilton Garrison, we give them a Reinforce order, we select an adjacent hex, in this case Mead Hall, and then a unit in that hex, the Schwarzenberg Rangers, and now if Mead Hall is attacked, the crossbowmen at Wilton Garrison will move into Mead Hall with them. If Mead Hall is not attacked, the crossbowmen will not move at all. This is good for using reserves behind the front line. There's also the Hold and Defend order. Units with the Hold and Defend order will gain a plus 5% melee combat bonus every turn. The maximum bonus is plus 20%. There is the Rest order. Units which are resting fight at half strength and of course cannot move as they're resting, but they regain cohesion that has been lost. And finally, we have Set Rally Point. This allows you to control the direction of a unit's retreat. So say we want the cavalry west of Brucebury to retreat towards Greycourt, you'd simply say select Rally Point, click on Greycourt, and now they will, if they're forced to retreat, they will try to move towards Greycourt. And that's it for this Goblin Storm first look and Let's Play. If you guys have any questions, feel free to ask in the comments below or on our Steam community or on our website at ns2games.com. I would be happy to answer them, and I look forward to release on December 19th. Hope to see you all there.